Hi there, this is Mr. Evans. This video is on the influences on financial objectives, and it's the final video in this first section here on setting financial objectives. So just worth reminding where financial objectives come from. They come from the corporate objectives. The managers, the leadership of the business sets the corporate objectives, and a good company will ensure that each of the department or each of the functional areas is making some contribution towards achieving those aims. So what are the internal influences on the financial objectives then? Well, the most obvious is the corporate objective. Okay, so a good financial objective should spring from the corporate objective to enable the business to achieve that goal. But as I stated in the first video, you've also got to be aware of how the objectives of the other departments may have an influence on the financial objective. So if we just have a look at, well, first of all, there's the finances available. That will have an influence on the financial objectives. So, for example, the amount of retained profit that a business has, if it needs to expand, it will need to consider, if it doesn't have enough retained profit, it will need to consider, okay, so do we want to become more risky? Do we want to become more highly geared? Do we want to have a greater proportion of this company funded by debt capital? So the finances available can have an influence on the financial objectives. In terms of marketing objectives, what are we trying to achieve in terms of the marketing of the organisation? A company following a strategy of diversification into new markets or growing in their current market versus a company that is just after surviving. They may have different requirements in terms of marketing. You know, a company following an aggressive growth strategy and moving into a new market will need lots of money for promotion, etc. Whereas a company looking to survive may be looking to minimise the amount of marketing that it does, or target it more specifically to a specific group of customers. In terms of operational objectives, well, again, what's the aim of operations? Are operations looking to launch a new product which requires a lot of capital investment, or are they looking to cut unit costs, reduce the costs of packaging and raw materials, etc.? This will determine whether we're setting maybe a cost minimisation strategy, or if we're prepared to go into a little bit of debt, if we're prepared to finance some capital investment by some long-term debt. Finally, the people aspect of an organisation. Well, where are they in terms of their workforce flow and their workforce planning? What recruitment and training needs do staff have? Do we need maybe, are we looking to expand the company and make it bigger, or are we even looking to reduce the size of the workforce, and how will we do that? And what impact does that have on our finances and our revenue targets, our cost targets, etc. So, a lot of internal influences. You should be getting the hang now. These are, the internal influences tend to be the corporate objectives and the other functional areas. And in each functional area, the objectives that they set depend on what's going on in the other functional areas. So, in terms of the external environment, we've got the political, economic, social, technological, legal and ethical, environmental. All of these can have an influence on the business's financial objectives, as well as competition, of course. Okay, so I think that's supposed to say external influences. Apologies about that. So the external influences include political. Okay, so things like, for example, change to government policy, like increasing tuition fees. It means that fewer students are going to school. Fewer students are going to university. So what impact might that have on a business's training needs? In fact, lots of businesses probably prefer students to come straight out of college and go into university, and go into business so that they can train with the skills that they need. But nevertheless, you can see that the political environment would have an impact on a business's finance, because it will determine the level of investment they need to have in training. In terms of the economic environment, changes in interest rates can hugely affect a business's debts. If a business anticipates the interest rate going up, that may well discourage them from borrowing significant amounts of finance. Okay, so various impacts in the economic environment. The social environment, people becoming more happy shopping online, requires businesses to be more flexible. They need to invest in technology, etc. So this can have an impact on the level of investment that a business needs to do. Again, I should say external environment, but in terms of technology, what's going to be the impact? We install new technology, we install new machinery, but maybe we can cut costs by getting rid of some members of staff who aren't as efficient. Okay, so the technological environment can have an impact. Changes to the minimum wage can increase a business's costs. The environmental, ethical, cutting waste, reducing power, etc. May help a business manage its costs, and therefore have an impact on the budgets that are set for expenditure on things like power. Finally, competitors. The competitiveness of an industry determines the revenue, the cost, the profits, and the targets, the cash flow that may be set as financial objectives. So range of influences there on financial objectives. The trick is to try and apply, if a question came up about what, analyse the main influences on the financial objectives set by company X. The trick is to look at the case study, see which aspects of the external environment you can apply, and which financial objectives in terms of budgets, costs, revenue, profit targets, cash flow forecast, break even, which financial objectives can you link that to?